Today is delivered as part of our new event series, Newid Digital Sessions, designed for third sector organisations in Wales to share learning and have honest conversations. So Newid is a partnership between Promo Cymru, Compass and the WCVA, supported by the Centre for Digital Public Services and funded by the Welsh Government. Newid promotes good digital practice across the third sector in Wales through providing training, support and information. Again, we're very excited to be joined by Dr Irina Mirkina, a leading global expert in the ethics and strategy of artificial intelligence, to talk about AI strategy for third sector organisations. Dr Mirkina has worked with the UN, the World Bank and international governments, helping organisations understand how to adopt AI responsibly. She's also been named in the list of 100 brilliant women in AI ethics and Inspired Minds as top 65 most influential women. So we're very, very grateful for Dr Irina to join us today. And with that, I'd like to hand over. So diolch yn fawr iawn.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much to Newid for inviting me. This is a very exciting opportunity to share my experiences with you and also hopefully to help you and your organizations to move forward with AI in practical and hopefully ethical ways as well. So I will be sharing this as a summary of my experiences that come from my work with UNICEF and, as Joe said, with a lot of workshops with many other organizations and governments, and also how that works in corporate sector with a particular emphasis on ethics and mission-driven objectives rather than money-driven objectives, which is important for the third sector. So to start with, the answer or the most important reason why we're all here, right? Why are we even talking about an AI strategy? Why would an organization need that? For three reasons mostly. You might need to know where you're going, right? There is a quote that is attributed to the American general and President Dwight Eisenhower that goes, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable, right? You know that it never will work out exactly as you planned it, but you need to have some idea where you're going. Otherwise, you will either be stuck in place or you will waste your time and resources and never achieve anything, or maybe you will work yourself into counterproductive or maybe some dangerous cases, right? So strategy allows all stakeholders across your organization to be on the same page about what you're trying to achieve and what is necessary and what are the best ways for you to get where you want to be. The other part of this, or the other side of this, is delivering value and staying true to your values, right? AI is a tool. It's a technology, or rather a set of technologies, an umbrella term for many, many different types of models and algorithms that can be applied to a wide range of use cases. How do you pick and choose which use cases to pursue? Where would AI work and where would we want to use AI, or where would a different type of technology be better, or maybe no technology at all would be better, right? Not going after the shiny new tool simply because it's shiny or because it's new, and focusing on the specific value, not necessarily monetary value, is what an AI strategy should help you to articulate. And then mitigating challenges. AI, as most digital technologies, comes with caveats and concerns around privacy, around security, around intellectual property, around ethics. And being very mindful of that, and being very, very mindful that in many cases you would face a dilemma. There wouldn't be a clear-cut yes or no choice. You will have to choose between two goods or two evils. None of the decisions that you're going to be making around AI are as straightforward as most newspaper articles or most vendors are promising you, right? None of this is going to be easy or cheap or risk-free. So how do you make those decisions also could be articulated here in the AI strategy that you would formulate, not necessarily like finding answers and guaranteeing everything beforehand, but thinking about those challenges and preemptively articulating how you would mitigate those challenges. What are you going to do to minimize risks or to prevent the worst case scenarios? Here is where you get to do that. And then implementation becomes easier. And once the risks are minimized, you're also safer, so you're more successful in achieving your goals in the long run. The overall process or a few steps in formulating an AI strategy would include several steps, right? The first three, I would say, are about articulating what you want to achieve and where you are at the moment, right? The sort of comparison. You need to assess your current maturity. You want to know where you are. You want to define what you would want to do with AI and also what you wouldn't do with AI. So that's part of literally getting on the same page, bringing all stakeholders into some sort of broad agreement and commitment. Then there is a part around governance and audit, and AI governance and AI audit could be a separate process, and in many cases it is a separate process. And that can go before or after establishing an AI strategy. And I'm sure that Promos Simra will share their tools with you around this as well. But I want to highlight that, and I will talk about it more later, that this part becomes essential when you need to assign responsibility while you're formulating an AI strategy. And if you haven't gone through the process of establishing AI governance beforehand, then a lot of questions and a lot of decisions become stalled because you don't know who would take responsibility and there is no one driving charge. And you also don't know how to mitigate challenges, right? Because AI audit is not established. So even if there are risks, you don't know, you literally don't know what they are because you've never audited your AI systems. So that part could be part of your AI strategy formulation or a separate process. And then the last two are about implementation. This is where you start putting your AI strategy in practice, and you need to formulate how exactly you would do that, how you would implement your first prototypes or your first pilots, or how would you scale those prototypes and pilots across the whole organizations to actually get the value. So let's start with the first step. A lot of organizations stumble with their AI implementation because they never assess their AI maturity, their current state of where their organization is. Maybe you've been through a digital transformation process before and you've actually done some form of assessment before, but it's useful to assess this specifically for AI. Do you have the resources that it takes? And some of these resources are kind of common for all types of digital transformation. So if you need to upgrade your hardware or software, this would be similar, right? Do you have the cybersecurity? Do you have access management? Do you have the computing power? Do you have the the laptops or whatever digital tools you would want to use. And some of this is specific to AI. Do you have the data to train AI models or to fine-tune AI models for your specific use cases? If you do have the data, where are they stored? In many organizations, or most organizations that have existed for longer than 1-2 years, data are in hundreds of different databases and sources stored in random locations across the organization. Some of them are in the cloud, some of them are on premise. None of this is connected. None of this is aligned in many ways. So once you start trying to use that data for AI use cases, you suddenly discover that AI gives you wrong answers because it's picking information from the wrong database or from the wrong SharePoint site or from the wrong document. So how do you actually align your data in a way that's useful? That has to happen before you even start thinking about AI implementation. Some of this is about budgets and timelines. Do you actually have a budget for AI? And what are the realistic timelines, right? A lot of organizations are like, well, the vendor told us that we can implement Copilot for, I don't know, £2,000, and we will be done in a month, and everything will work by the end of the week, and we will never have any problems. It's going to be perfect from day one. I can guarantee you that this is not how it's going to work. Implementation is going to take some time, and you will see the first value, the first results, probably in a few months, but the full value anywhere between 1.5 to 3 years from the moment when you start the implementation. Budgets will balloon because, again, readjusting the data or paying for the compute for the actual servers or GPUs that those, or even if it's cloud computing, where those AI models are running on, those costs are going to accumulate. So do you have realistic budgets and realistic timelines? That would depend on your assessment. And again, when you're assessing your maturity, it's okay to say, we don't have these resources at the moment. In fact, it's necessary to be very honest and very specific about this, because then you can reassess which use cases you would prioritize and how much how much value you would get out of each of those use cases. You don't have to do all of this alone. So in many cases, you can share resources with each other. Again, a community such as this one is an amazing case where you can establish partnerships and maybe build models together or share the data, storing practices among each other. But also establishing ethics and governance practices is what you get the value from, or where you speed up the process by sharing amongst each other. Now, once you've established where you are, you get to the fun part, probably that a lot of managers and a lot of leaders in AI are most excited about, right? It's daydreaming. Where do we want to be? What is our vision for using AI? And this is where it gets shiny and exciting, and you see a lot of great promises around AI, simplifying all the work or getting you all the answers quickly and accurately and wonderfully. You need to define a vision that is ambitious and that is reasonably long-term, right? Don't think about where AI can get you in 1 year. Think about where you would want to be in 5 to 10 years, right? Really, really long-term. And you start thinking about AI after you've defined your business strategy or your organizational strategy. So where would you want to be? Where is your mission bringing you organization with or without AI in 5 to 10 years? And then you can think about how AI can support you on that path. How can you get to that vision faster? Function over form is a great principle that it's an advice, but it's a rule of thumb or a heuristic that you can use when choosing whether an AI is actually a useful tool for you to achieve your vision, right? A lot of use cases or a lot of narratives around AI that are have been prevalent in the past, I don't know, 5 years, and especially in the past 2.5 years, were around, I don't know, humanoid robots or super intelligence, right? Do you actually need that? My hunch from practical experience is no. Nobody needs humanoid robots. If you think about household AI, you don't need a French maid in high heels and with coiffed hair to do your floor cleaning. What you need is some sort of robot vacuum cleaner, which is basically a huge electro-motorized mop that is going around your house and does the mopping. And that is the case for all types of AI. You don't need lipstick on your washing machine or your toaster. Think of this as a machine and think of this as utility taking precedence over any sort of shiny promises of super intelligence. And then think of this as a long-term perspective, right? So AI strategy is not a document that you would want to change every year, but the technology changes, right? New tools, new updates come out every year pretty much. So how do you stay kind of relevant as you're thinking long-term? Well, you don't put specific models or specific use cases in your AI strategy. What you're establishing is principles and heuristics. You're thinking about value for your organization. So value, for example, to serve more clients for your organization, that's great. To do more communications or do more fundraising, that's great. Value of a very particular model, no, let's not get attached to one particular model because it will get outdated within the next, let's say, 2-3 years. About being upfront about what you would and wouldn't do, I will get to this in a second, but then you also need to acknowledge that a lot of the decisions that you are taking today, you don't actually have answers to, right? There is a lot of uncertainty around what this technology would give to you and what new types of technology would be the relevant ones in 5 to 10 years. There is a lot of uncertainty around scale. You can implement one little pilot, but would that scale for the whole organization? You wouldn't know until you've actually done this. Acknowledging this in advance, like beforehand, is what gets you realistic and practical and what helps you to be prepared to actually deal with those challenges. And again, this is more about establishing heuristics or anticipating that there will be changes, there will be lessons learned, and we will need to learn and adapt as we go. We are not going to make one decision and then stick to that decision no matter what. An AI strategy and the vision that you establish for that AI strategy has to be that adaptable and staying relevant part of your process. Now, I'm obviously trying to be very like high level and speed up through things because we only have 30 minutes and I'm already running out of time, but I want to dig deeper into this specific example because It was a question that several people have submitted ahead of time. How do you actually pick and choose your vision and use cases for your vision and align them with the mission of your organization? First of all, you don't make decisions for all types of AI. Like, there are no universal decisions. You may make choices for one type of AI for one use case, where it's like full adoption. This is what all of us are going to be doing from now on. And for other types of AI or for other use cases, you can say, no, we are not going to do that. When to pick and choose and which strategy to pick and choose is what you're going to document in the AI strategy. Again, it's about heuristics and rule of thumbs, literally documenting the principles for why you've made a certain decision versus any other type of decision. And I want to take a very common use case. So image generation is a type of AI or functionality that is used extensively across most organizations, right? It's for communications, for reporting, for fundraising, anywhere where you need a little bit of graphics. People get very excited about, oh, AI can speed up our work and save a lot of costs. So I want to highlight how different organizations have handled this. Amnesty International was the first charity that really got on board with using generative AI for image generation. Already in March 2023, they published a report using AI-generated photos to illustrate ongoing protests in Colombia. It saved time, it saved cost. For them, it also aligned with their mission, because they were trying to protect the privacy of protesters, right? They wanted to protect the privacy of people they were intended to serve. They faced a huge public backlash for that, because the public reacted, well, you're literally producing deepfakes. How would we even know that your reporting is true, that there is anything going on in Colombia, right? So Amnesty had to navigate very carefully and defend their decision to use AI for various reasons, but they stuck with that decision. That was their choice. UNICEF has debated using image generation for a very long time. We had the same concerns as Amnesty, so we also wanted to preserve privacy of children, but we needed to be mindful of public trust. We would not want to generate deep fakes of children and their families. And UNICEF is also a huge international, very decentralized organization. So we were very realistic and practical when saying, okay, even if the headquarters says no, we cannot possibly expect that all 160 country offices will never use that, right? We need to be very practical and realistic. And then costs and availability were a huge concern for us, right? In many of our country offices, in some of the poorest countries on earth, they simply did not have access to graphic designers, right? And forbidding them from using technology that would help them overcome that deficiency simply felt wrong. And even if they had the money and they had access to graphic designers, those money would probably be better spent on vaccines or emergency kits than they were on marketing materials, right? So even from cost perspective or availability perspective, we weren't able to justify not using AI for this. However, again, public trust is important. We cannot afford losing credibility or damaging public trust in UNICEF, because that would affect our fundraising as well. So we adopted a middle strategy, right? We said it's okay to use AI for conceptual art that could not possibly be mistaken for deep fakes. So cartoonish images are fine, but we are not going to use image generation for any real people or anything that can be mistaken for real people or real situation. And it's also not okay to use it for specific styles. This was mostly for copyright protection, right? We don't want to be accused of, I don't know, generating Disney-like images. And then the third version of the decisions that could be made is what I've seen from a whole list of charities coming from very different perspectives and making that decision for various reasons. Again, trust is super important. So anywhere where organization is thinking about deep fakes or working against deep fakes, they say, well, we are not going to use AI for the use case that we are literally working against. So the Worldwide Childhood Foundation, for example, which is a Swedish, international Swedish charity working for preventing child sexual abuse, they said, well, a lot of deep fakes are pornography, including child sexual abuse materials. For us, that is not an acceptable use case, and we are not going to contribute to this because generating more images of children would literally make more materials, more sources for child sexual abuse materials. So we would be exacerbating the problem. Bias is a huge issue. So UNICEF has found it for our international work. So a lot of images were not very culturally sensitive or just plainly wrong, very stereotypical. But even when you are producing materials within one country, for example, or within an English-speaking country, there is a lot of gender bias. It's literally impossible or very hard to produce images of there is a beauty bias, right? So anyone who is not a pretty child, some angelic, very thin and very pretty child, that's just impossible in most cases. So overcoming those biases in most cases just does not justify the use case. Sustainability is a huge concern. So generative AI models, including image generation, training and using those models consumes a lot of energy and clean water and emits a lot of CO2. So I know of at least 3 charities that are working on sustainability and climate change, and they said, well, we are not going to use technology that exacerbates the problem. We would be hypocrites if we do that. Job loss, I know of homelessness charity in Sweden that said, well, saving costs is great, but that would mean that artists, copywriters, graphic designers would lose their livelihood. Why would we use AI to literally increase the number of our clients? We are not going to do that. And then copyright issues, right? You cannot copyright AI generated content, and then you don't know really what's in the database that AI was trained on. So there are a lot of ethical concerns that can justify just one of them or all of them in combination can justify why your organization might not want to use this type of AI for this use case. This says nothing about other use cases, and it's not a prescriptive, like there are very different decisions, as you can see. What I invite you to do when setting your vision and when you're deciding on which use cases to pick is to be very deliberate about the decisions you're making and to document in your AI strategy why you've made those decisions, right? Bring all stakeholders together, be very clear about the positives, saving costs or time or improving accessibility, and the negatives, everything on the ethics side. Maybe you will find a middle ground. Maybe you will make one choice for one type of AI for one use case and a very different choice for other types of AI and other use cases. There is no prescription there, but you need to be deliberate in how you actually decide that. Now, rushing through the rest of it, prioritization is after you've determined which use cases you want to pursue or which cases might contribute, might bring value to your mission, to your organization. This is where you get to actually be specific about which of those use cases you would do, which of them you would do right now, you would start with them, and which of them would need to wait a little longer, maybe until you've got more resources. And you can prioritize among many dimensions, but I would invite you to think of at least two combining various aspects of AI implementation, right? Think about value for your organization, business value. It's about does that actually contribute to your mission? What are the initial costs? What are the ongoing or scaling costs, right? Really, really dig into assigning value. And it doesn't have to be monetary, like a specific number that you assign, but you might estimate that costs for this use case would be low, for this one would be medium, and for this one would be high. That already will help you to prioritize which of them would fall where on this graph. On the other side, you need to balance this with feasibility. Do you have the resources, right, that you have already assessed in your AI maturity assessment? Do you have the stakeholder support? Is the team that is supposed to implement this actually aware that they are going to implement this? And are they on board with this? Have you mitigated risks? Have you thought about cybersecurity? Have you thought about how that would affect your clients? How that would, if something goes wrong, do you have measures in place to prevent this from going really, really wrong and destroying everything that you built? And then your ability to execute. Do you actually have the expertise? Do you actually have the resources, the computing power, the data to make that use case to come true? And once you've mapped those dimensions, again, I invite you to think in terms of high, medium, low. You are able to see, okay, so high priority use cases would be where we have the resources and that bring the most value. That's amazing. Low priority use cases would be ones where maybe we see the value, but they would take a lot more time or they require a lot more costs, or where we see a lot of risks, so we are not going to prioritize them. AI governance, again, you will hear more about this later on today, and I invite you to think of this as a separate but super, super important process and a super important part of what a successful AI implementation would require, right? It means assigning responsibility. It means assigning decision-making power. In many cases, it kind of falls by default to a manager or to the CEO, to a director of your organization. But does that person actually have the knowledge to make sensible decisions around AI? In many cases, you would need a council or an AI office or some sort of expertise that would help you make sense of those decisions before you start, jumping through the hoops. Thinking about safety, but also security, right? Responsibility is also about thinking about how it would affect your clients, how that would affect your mission in the long term. It's about thinking ahead about possible risk mitigation. It's about establishing processes for AI audit and principles of actually How do you guarantee that an AI system does what it's supposed to do? In most cases, you don't have an answer to that question until you've established a system of AI governance and AI audit. Standards, obviously, there are international standards or national standards. So in the EU, we have the EU AI Act. In the UK, there are other regulations coming in around AI safety. There are standards, IT standards that ISO has established in terms of AI risk management and AI lifecycle. There are benchmarks. How do you actually evaluate that AI system is valuable or is improving your mission? And there are internal rules and policies where you get to decide what your organization does and how you do things. Documentation is just enabling your audit. If all your knowledge is stored in somebody's head, you would not know actually how to extract that. And then the most important part, or the most essential reason why AI governance is important, is thinking about consequences. When we are talking about AI, a lot of it is a promise, a value. There are so many opportunities and we want to jump on those opportunities. But you need to think about consequences and what if those consequences are negative. And I like to remind people about the difference between outcome and impact. Outcome is you can evaluate the accuracy of a system. You can have a benchmark, like accuracy is 98%. Great. And then you can accept maybe that's enough, maybe that's not enough. You can document your decision-making process around this and sleep quietly. Impact, as opposed to outcome, is what the wrong decision, what those 2% would do to real people and to real families, right? So outcome of an image recognition system that fails to recognize a child in 2% of cases, that might be fine. That doesn't, 98% accuracy is great. The impact is when that image recognition system is on a car that fails to see the child crossing the road, kills the child, and the impact that it would have on the whole family, the whole community, and so on. So thinking about consequences ahead and how you would mitigate, what would be the prevention mechanisms and what would be the redress mechanisms after things have already gone wrong, that is where you have to be very specific in your AI governance process. I'm closing off, again, mindful of time. The main pitfalls is when you're rushing to adoption without thinking of what it would entail. So hammer looking for a nail or being enamored with the next shiny thing, right? It's abandoning the practical use cases, the whole process that you've gone through, and suddenly goes, no, but there's something, this great idea, and just starts running with that idea. No, AI strategy will be successful and your AI implementation will be successful only if everybody agrees that this is what we've decided on and this is the decision that we are going to stick to. Failure to say no can be dangerous in many cases. Usually it leads to a dispersion and waste of resources, right? You're trying to do too many things at the same time, or you refuse to say no to a use case that is actually unethical or that could lead to some dangerous outcomes and impact, or would lead to security breaches and privacy violation. You have to be able to say no to AI. You have to be able to remind yourself that this is an option. You don't have to implement AI just because it's available. Foregoing AI governance, I've talked about it already, and underestimating complexity. I hope I imparted that passion for complexity already. And then what you start doing, you start very, very small. You start with one use case, and you see, oh, actually, we need to learn that it takes a lot of time, or it takes a lot more computing resources and therefore money, and we need to reprioritize this, or we need to assign a much higher budget for this. You will also see when you need more expertise, and you will have to figure out how to get that expertise, whether to hire someone or to work in partnership with somebody. And then you would need to figure out if that is a use case that you would want to continue to scale. A lot of failure to adopt or to failure to implement AI is in the break between starting very small and scaling, because one use case might be very successful, one prototype can be very successful, but then we realize that to scale might be a lot more complex or expensive. So already when you're evaluating and prioritizing your use cases, I invite you to think about what would be the complexity and what would be the cost if you were to expand this for the whole organization. In many cases, you would decide, oh, actually, we are not even going to experiment with a small thing because we would never be able to expand this to the point where it would actually start delivering value. And that is okay. But failure to plan, failure to estimate security measures after you've gotten your model out of sandbox environment and into production, that failure to be forward thinking is the reason why a lot of reports say that AI prototypes fail. Well, they fail because we haven't thought about how they would actually scale. But also, please don't despair. Please use every pilot, whether or not it was successful or scalable, use that as a learning opportunity, right? It's never in vain. We've learned something that would help us to get better with the next use case and with the next use case. So it's an iterative process where you get better and you improve by learning from your past experiences and adopting as you go, staying agile. I'm going to close off here with my presentation, and I hope that a lot of this was useful. Again, I rushed through very high level process because there was a lot in 30 minutes, but I do hope that you will reach out and ask your questions or invite me to review your AI strategy. I don't know what would be most useful. Invite me for an in-depth 3-hour, 6-hour session. And obviously, I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you so much, Irina, for coming and speaking to us today. It's been very insightful, and I know already the amount of people who signed up to actually attend this talk has shown how much what you've said has interested people and excited people. So thank you very, very, very much. We have got a little bit of time for a Q&A. So if anybody would like to ask Irina a question, please feel free to pop it in the chat. We might not be able to get to every single question, but we'll certainly ask ones that people are interested in hearing about. On that note, we've actually received a few questions in advance. So if it's okay with you, Irina, I'm just going to ask two of the top ones.
Sure.
So question one was, how can we support our colleagues who are less confident using AI and are in need of some sort of upskilling?
Ooh, amazing question. I think communities like this are the best because this is where people get to share their fear or doubts around AI, but also see a lot of practical examples. So you either find solutions to some problems or you see amazing examples that other people are using AI for, and you get inspired, right? So training is an essential part of AI governance. So again, when you're assigning responsibility, it would be great if somebody would take responsibility for teaching people, but you will have to address those two fundamental pull factors, right? One, to overcome people's fears around AI. Some of them might be just, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be replaced by AI, which is an unfounded fear, but you will have to help them overcome that. Or I will do something wrong, or the AI will do something wrong. And some of them would be too excited, jumping into opportunities, and you will have to help them understand the ethical concerns or how to be more deliberate and more productive. This is where you get to say, okay, this is what you use this particular model for and how you use that. So AI trainings, there are plenty of materials on the internet. I would invite you to find what's useful for a particular use case, and then share that use case, and then another use case and share that use case, and always addressing both fears and aspirations.
Thank you very, very much. And secondly, we've had the question, what would you say is the best practice for transparency when it comes to the stakeholders of organizations around AI?
Oh, this is actually one of those tricky questions where I said none of the decisions that you're making around AI will be straightforward. Dilemmas around transparency come from two ethical principles. So everybody says transparency is great, and we need to be transparent with stakeholders internally. We need to be transparent with our clients. That's a great principle. We want to do that. There is also a principle, an ethical principle or safety responsible principle that says we want to protect privacy. We want to protect copyright and intellectual property. We need to be secure. And those two principles usually require different things, sometimes completely opposite things. And you will have to make those decisions very deliberately during your AI audit or AI governance process. You will have to determine how much you reveal and for whom, right? You can say that to our clients, we do not reveal everything, but we will reveal what kind of model we are using, what kind of data it's trained on, and most importantly, how they can, what is the redress mechanism, right? If they disagree, for example, with an AI made decision, or if they find an AI output biased or inaccurate, insufficient, how they can object to that decision or to that output. It's the same for internal stakeholders. How much different teams need to know will differ for every organization and for every use case, but you can establish some rule of thumb, some heuristics, how much you reveal versus how much you keep transparent. I would advise, I hate when people, I go to conferences and people start their presentation by saying, oh, I've got this presentation topic and I've asked ChatGPT. And it sounds almost like bragging. It's like, why are you bragging about using a toaster? What are you doing, right? So for me, that enamored approach to AI just doesn't make sense. You're not bragging about using a spell checker. Don't brag about using ChatGPT or Copilot. But you need to reveal to your colleagues, especially when you've used AI to generate a report, because you will need to check accuracy, right? One of the principles that I've advocated in UNICEF and every organization is the principle of multiple eyes. 4 eyes, as we used to say. So every piece of information that is produced, especially if an AI was involved, need to be seen by at least 2 people. Right? It's you who generated something, but somebody else needs to review that and say, yeah, this looks okay. Right? So being transparent when that requires proof of accuracy, when it requires checks, and that is essential.
Thank you very, very much. And one final question, if that's all right with you, Irina.
Sure.
We've had a message in the chat from Affanwy Jones, who has asked, in order to create a strategy, do you need a lot of understanding of what is possible? Because how can we make decisions on use cases without knowing what all the possibilities are, especially since technology is still developing? Or is the strategy more high level, identifying how will we make decisions on use cases? As in, do we need to pay to bring an expert in to create a strategy?
I would lean towards yes, if you want a strategy to be actually useful, like why are you doing this whole thing, or what are you doing this whole thing for, you would want to be reasonably specific, and for that you need to determine your use cases. And if you don't have the expertise in-house yet, you will either need to hire that expertise in-house or partner up with an external consultant, or maybe, I don't know, a community such as this one, where somebody can help you figure out those use cases. You can overcome that to some extent by just listening to or Googling or having informal conversations, basically stealing use cases from other organizations or getting inspired, right? You might say, oh, they are using it for image generation, or they're using it for report generation. We want to do that as well. But that would be limited because it's not specific, it's not customized to you and your organization. And if you want to be very high level and aspirational, again, if you Google AI strategy, you will find a lot of those things, because especially from the US, because the American government 3 or 4 years ago, they said that every government agency had to have an AI officer and had to have an AI strategy. So all government agencies just published an AI strategy. And in most cases, it was like a 2-page document that said, we want to be AI native. Great. And right. So if you are required to do that for reporting processes, a high-level vision is all you need. If you want to actually be useful for what you're trying to do, you might want to talk to an expert. And again, you don't need to do this full time, right? What I do in some of the advisory work that I'm doing, I might come in the beginning to bring all stakeholders on the same page, and I might come in the end to review and kind of help you think through some of the nuts and bolts in the end, but you don't need me for the whole process. Maybe this might be a way to work for some of you.
We'd just like to say thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been fantastic. And yeah, people seem extremely appreciative. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Great. As part of the session now, we will be handing over to Arielle Tye, who is the head of digital with Promo Cymru, to talk a little bit about practical resources to support AI governance, and again, highlight training and opportunities here in Wales to help put your strategy into place.
Dwi'n Arielle Tye, dwi'n Newid Digital Promo Cymru. Firstly, just really like to say thank you so much, Irina, for coming to talk to us about this today. My role really is to now share some practical information about how we can take some of this forward and the different support that actually we've got available. So yeah, as Joe mentioned, I'm head of digital at Promo Cymru, and I work as part of a creative and digital team that really supports third sector organisations to rethink how they deliver their services using digital. A hefyd, dwi'n rhan o'r tîm Newid Digidol ar gyfer y trydydd sector. I'm also part of the Newid team that delivers digital work for the third sector. And we've got lots of different training and resources, which I'm going to run through now before we send you into some breakout rooms. So if you go onto the Newid website, it's full of information, case studies, and different elements of support that you can get to actually take anything to do with digital forward. And like Irina was saying, it's really important to be able to learn from other organisations that are actually solving challenges using digital. So one of our really big focuses on Newid is actually capturing case studies from organisations in Wales, just like you, using digital so that you can read those and get inspired and actually see what other people are doing. And we also deliver all sorts of training as well. So please do check out the Newid website. In terms specifically around AI, we have got some really exciting things coming up. So very much like Irina was saying, the reason that we got her in to talk to you today was because we have been speaking to a lot of organizations, and we understand that many of you now are using AI as individuals within your roles. I mean, some people still not, but many of us are starting to use perhaps note-taking, image generation, chatbots to support us with our work. But what we're not seeing is organizations actually taking this forward in this strategic way, exactly like what Irina was talking about. How do we actually prepare that vision and understand how we're going to bed AI across our organization strategically? If you're feeling like this, it isn't just you. The Charity Digital Skills Report that was just published, and now this is a UK-wide survey that's done to charities, and 9% of organisations from Wales actually responded. Sorry, the data that was captured was also 9% of organisations of the data were from Wales. And according to the Charity Digital Skills Report, 76% of charities are using AI. So that's like individually we're starting to use it. But only 2%, that's out of the whole of the UK, is saying they have a strategic approach. So if you're feeling like a lot of this stuff that was talked about today, wow, we're not really near that yet, you're not alone. And this is actually echoed throughout the UK. We're actually doing a survey at Promo Cymru as well. So we shared a survey right at the beginning, and we're gathering our own data on what the picture is like in Wales. And it's actually less organisations in Wales are saying that they're using AI personally within their work. So when we asked this question, only 52% of people who filled in the survey are saying they're personally using it within their work. And there's a very low confidence level in terms of how confident your organisation is in using AI. And that's why we're providing a whole range of support now, really trying to help you to move from that use of we're using it a little bit in our roles to how strategically are you going to take this forward. So 2 very important courses that are coming up. Don't worry if you can't make these dates, because we will be running them again. The first one is at the end of October. Now, these are both AIs for leaders. The reason we're focusing at leadership is because of this. What we're talking about today is about strategy, it's about policy, it's about governance. So the first session on the 29th of October, this one is actually going to be guiding you through some practical applications for your organization. So one of those questions that came up in the chat, how do we even know what the possibilities are? So this first one is really going to be good for you if you're feeling like, actually, you're not even that aware of the different possibilities, of the case studies, of the tools that are available. This one should give you that really good grounding about the different things that you could be using and how other people in the third sector are using it. And then in November, the next session is actually going to be about strategy. So we're going to be helping you look at what is your strategy, what are the ethical considerations you have to think about for your specific organization, writing these appropriate usage policies, and also about how you're going to communicate that vision for responsible AI adoption. So that first one is that grounding around AI. And that second one, we're really going to be digging into starting to put this into process. How do we actually write these policies? And we'll be giving you tools and guidelines to do that. If you want to get started straight away, or you can't make either of those sessions, we have already got tools that we're starting to produce, and we're putting them up on the Newid website. And also we've got tools we're producing at Promo Cymru as well. So you can get started straight away. This is an AI risk assessment tool. It's a really, really good place to start. We've actually, I'll show you on the next screen what it looks like. We've created you a template that you can download and use, where you can actually start going through how you might already be using AI in your organization and starting to understand what it's being used for. So it's a bit of an audit, and also understanding those areas of risk and how you're mitigating them. So yeah, we'll share this in the chat, but this is something you can actually do straight away to get started, to be thinking about how are your teams already using it as individuals, and what are those risks? Because that's super important that you're informed about this. You might find that stuff comes up already where you need to be starting to share, actually, we cannot be using this tool for this sort of thing because we haven't found a way to mitigate that risk. Another service that I want to promote that you can get free one-to-one support. You could actually come and talk to one of the Promo Cymru team. So that's Joe, Andrew, myself. This is funded by the National Lottery Community Fund. It's free one-to-one support. So you can literally book on. You could probably talk to one of us in the next 2 days. And you could actually book on straight through a calendar, and we can just be helping you straight away, embed some of this stuff, answer your questions. And this could be on AI, or it can be on any digital challenge that you're facing. So please check out the Cymru service if you want to have that one-on-one support. And then finally, we've also got on the Promo Cymru website, we're starting to build this resource bank of AI specific tools. So again, we've got resources on all sorts of topics, but we're starting to build a bank of things specifically around AI as well. So really, I've just been sharing a whole load of, information, but hopefully you'll be able to actually look through some of these and take advantage of the training. The best place to continue to find out about not only this session today, but all of the work that we're doing and the training that's available is to sign up to the Newid newsletter. Lucy, my colleague, she does a great job at actually looking and finding relevant things, not just from Wales, but actually relevant things throughout the UK and further, to support you with your work as third sector organisations. So that's me, diolch yn fawr. But yeah, please do check out those links, and we will be sharing those afterwards as well.